Welcome to Dick Morris Democracy. I'm Dick Morris. If you're white, you are inherently, unavoidably, systemically racist. If you're white and you don't believe you're racist, it's only because you are subconsciously racist and don't know it. If you're white, you are an oppressor, which means you're a white supremacist. And if you are white, you can and should be discriminated against to further equity. This isn't racism. This is called anti-racism. Those are the tenets of critical race theory, CRT, now being taught in schools throughout America, incentivized by your tax money. It's the intellectual basis for the newest form of racism, anti-white discrimination. Initially, the Department of Education required CRT to be included in curricula in order to get grants. But after Senator Mike Lee, Republican of Utah, raised hell, the DOE backtracked and deleted the absolute requirement to teach CRT. But the Biden Secretary of Education, Miguel Angel Cardona, couldn't get away from saying that the program would seek to provide more perspectives related to American history, civics, and government. Perspectives is the key word. Not facts, not dates, not places, not events, not even real history. Just perspectives. Whose perspectives? Those of the radical left staffing our schools at the federal, state, and local level. We've been bombarded with horror stories about the effects of CRT. Recently, Coca-Cola employees were trained to be less white, and kindergartners in Buffalo were required to participate in a lesson on racist police and state-sanctioned violence, which involved showing these young kids images of black children who've died. The middle school students were taught that all white people play a part in perpetuating systemic racism. In New York, an elementary school child came home to tell her parents that she'd been taught that all people with lighter skin don't like people with darker skin and are mean to them. The parent was horrified as he tried to explain that's not how we feel in this family. In Nevada, a biracial high school student refused to self-identify as a white supremacist. He was harassed and punished for it. They flunked him and he couldn't graduate. His black mother sued the school. In Virginia, a group of teachers and parents compiled a blacklist of parents who disagreed with the school's teaching of CRT in an effort to attack, humiliate, and harass them online. Okay? Enough? Get the point? But that's not what this show is about. This show is about the kids, the children, particularly the biracial children who are caught in the middle of this racial war in our schools. Are we teaching white children that their house, their family car, their lifestyle is not due to their parents' hard work, but because they oppressed black people? Are we teaching children of mixed marriages that the one parent who is white systematically exploits the other who is black? Are we teaching boys to follow the Oedipal cycle of hating their fathers and wanting to marry their mothers? And when a biracial couple breaks up, are we injecting even more hostility and animosity into an already toxic situation by teaching children that their white parent is racist and white supremacist, even when the white parent showed their identification with the ideal of overcoming bigotry by marrying someone of another race in the first place? In 2013, the Census Bureau counted 9 million Americans who identify themselves as of more than one race. 1 in 10 children born that year had parents of different races. Mixed-race marriages have quadrupled in the past 30 years. Psychologists report that to cope with society biases, mixed-race children may develop a public identity with a minority race, while maintaining a private interracial identity with family and friends. But studies are clear that those kids from mixed marriages who grow up with a single race identity, who choose sides in this race war raging around us, are much more unhappy than those who have a true multiracial or multicultural identity. And the shrinks tell us that multiracial children in divorced families may have greater difficulty accepting and valuing the cultures of both parents. The psychologists say children of interracial families report teasing, whispers, and stares when they're with their family. And the children may face pressure from their society peers or families to identify with only one race. Imagine how much worse critical race theory makes this difficult situation. Child psychologists advise parents to help their children cope by open communication in the family about race and cultures, by allowing curiosity about differences in skin color, hair texture, and facial features among family members. So how are they supposed to do this when CRT encourages children of color to see white kids as racist oppressors and big boogeymen? What hope is there for love and understanding in this racial war zone the left is creating? When I was 6 years old, my parents sent me to a sleepaway camp in Maine. We slept in 2-boy tents. I wrote Mom and Dad about my tent mate, Mark Davis, telling him where he was from, Philadelphia, that he liked to play ball, that he was a heck of a shortstop, that he was really funny and was a great kid. Then on Parents' Visiting Day, they met him and discovered one thing I hadn't mentioned, that Mark was black. It didn't seem important. My folks were thrilled that they were raising a kid in the post-racial society. But not anymore. CRT would have ruined all that. And it wasn't just me. Ndona Muboyi returned to her hometown in Evanston, Illinois in 2018 with her children so they would receive the empowering, racially inclusive education she remembered from her own childhood. Instead, they experienced a curriculum she felt was disempowering, divisive, and ill-suited to help children of color succeed. Her children were taught about white supremacy, white privilege, and that all white people were rich and racist. Her kids had always been proud of who they were, but then they started to question themselves. Her son wanted to be a lawyer since he was 11, but after being exposed to CRT, said, "But Mommy, there are systems put in place that prevent black children from accomplishing anything." She said, "That's what they're teaching black kids. This is what white people have done to black people. The narrative is you can't get ahead." Muboye, a member of the NAACP in the Congolese community of Chicago, decided to run for the school board to remove the Black Lives Matter in school curriculum that was put in place in the first place to combat racism. Now she's among its outspoken critics. And what happens when we leave the classroom and go to the schoolyard, the sports field, the playground? How does reverse racism play there? The white California mother of a black biracial boy reports that her son wasn't selected for the baseball team because he wasn't black enough. The teachings of CRT are brutal enough, but imagine how they sound in the cruelty of young boys and girls teasing one another. We see our politicians giving speeches and taking crazy positions like CRT, and they have no thought for how kids in the living rooms of America will respond to their messages. We try to take care and shield our families from pornography and excessive violence on film. Before they run films of murders or shootings, the TV producers warn us that the material is explicit and may be unsuitable for children. But where are the warnings when the speeches of politicians, activists, educators, and commentators are explicitly racist and are also unsuitable for children?
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.